probably just need to talk about what a utilisation study is. So in terms of doing a workplace strategy, a utilisation study is a really, really important thing to do. And if you're experienced like us, if you don't have sensors, you can do it through benchmarking data, because we've got pretty good benchmarking data. But if you don't and you want to get a more accurate picture, there's really two ways to do it. You can do a manual observation where you walk around and you observe in a set pattern. Is that space occupied or not occupied, and what are they actually doing at that space? Or the more efficient way to do it is using sensors. Okay, and so what you're trying to do is you're trying to understand how much spaces, different types of spaces, are being utilised. And there's really three numbers that we're looking at. There's pretty much the peak, which is, or we call it worst case, but it's maybe the max would be a better way to talk about it.
Maximum occupancy.
Which is over the 4-week study or 3-week study, what was the most work points, say for example, that were ever occupied? Yeah. And then there's the peak average. So on a daily basis, there'll be a peak. There might be a 9:30 and 3:30. And what's the average of all of those peaks across the life of the study? And then if you take the entire time that the study was on for, what is the overall average? So, and we use it for figuring out a couple of things. So we use it to figure out if they're a candidate for new ways of working. So we compare their data to benchmarking data to say, you know, is this an organisation that can evolve in any sort of sharing model? There are some organisations that shouldn't be going to a sharing model, right? And the utilisation data will tell you that. We also can use it to figure out what are the required work points that they need, and we always will use the max. And we also use it to understand what other spaces are being used or not used, and to what capacity. So for example, meeting rooms, you know, are we having 2 people in a huge meeting room? So is it getting used to capacity? So it's a really important tool as part of a workplace strategy.
And that's a really good point around, is it used to capacity? Because so many times we find that you'll have a small group of people go and have their meeting in, you know, a large meeting room that's much larger than the size they need, purely because they can't get access to the right size space. So it helps us to really understand what sort of size space workplaces need as well when it comes to supporting those activities.
But on top of that, I think, like you said, sometimes we can actually identify that they have enough meeting rooms. It's just that the way that they're behaving around them is incorrect. So they're booking them and not showing up. So we're able to compare the booking process with the show up process as well, and say, actually, you've got enough meeting rooms. We just need to change the behaviour around booking, or the technology around booking, so that they can actually use it more efficiently. So, utilisation studies are a really important piece of work that we do. And we do often find, I mean, in your experience, do you find that meeting rooms, everyone says they don't have enough, but when we do the actual study, a lot of it's to do with the fact that they can't find one, but it's not actually being used?
Almost every time. I'd say almost every time people will say, we can't get meeting rooms, we need more meeting rooms. And then we get in there and the meeting rooms are only being used, 30-40% of the time, and it's really around that behaviour. You were mentioning that people book them, so they look booked, they're not available for booking, but then there's nobody actually sitting in the space. I mean, the same thing goes for the work points as well. If we were going to go off benchmarking, we'd sort of sit at around 80% as a conservative estimate, but almost every time we've done a utilisation study, the actual utilisation has been so much lower than that.